תשבו נא. Hallelujah. May the words of my lips and the meditation of my mind be acceptable before you, O Yah, my rock and my redeemer. Hallelujah. First and foremost, giving all honor and glory to the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, Chuquat, Yisrael. To him and him alone are all praises due forever and ever. Showing respect to the leader of D.C.B, Prince Yediel Ben Yissaskar, to the men of the council, all of the men, women, and children within the sound of my voice. I bid you all on the tongue of my forefather, Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Lakem.
Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Lakem.
How y'all doing this morning? God is good. You know, they told us it's going to be a bunch of rain today. I ain't see one raindrop yet. Maybe in your part of town, but the Most High God has been good to us thus far. Thanking him for the lives of everyone who was able to travel to North Carolina safely to join our brothers and sisters of Hashaba there for their 20th anniversary. I would like to give a great big shout out to my brothers at Ev Binyamin, who I learned this morning just had a baby boy. The Most High God has blessed him. Third child, everything is well with the child. Thanking the Most High God for even bringing another life into this nation. So this morning we will be going through the portion, the portion of Chuquat, Numbers chapter 19. This portion is not long at all. So I know there's an expectation of me being long-winded, but I'm not going to be going through, I'm going to be going through it fairly quickly, but I'm going to focus on some issues, as I usually do, because it's pertinent to the times. Like Sarkar just said this morning, just a few minutes ago, oftentimes we are picking up a fight that's not our fight. What you see in the world today is, we have our own burdens to bear. I think I was watching the news this week, and there was a woman that was walking with a baby, and somebody just shot her in the head. Yeah, point blank range. It was in upper east side of Manhattan. Yeah, and I think they caught the guy in Brooklyn, in Brownsville. Yeah, they caught him in your neighborhood, bro. And they're still trying to find out all the stuff that's going on. They don't know if the child belonged to the lady that was pushing the stroller. There was all types of things going on, but domestic violence, right? Yeah. So the interesting thing of all of this is that as a community, as a people, we have our own fish to fry. We have to get past our emotional deficits and our hurdles as a people in order for us to be able to even fight against the things that are coming down the pipeline against us. I was looking at a YouTube, and the YouTube was kind of discussing how history, especially our history, was whitewashed. And in looking at the fact that everything that you was taught in school, I think 90% of the stuff you was taught in school concerning your history and European history was actually a lie. They told you Egyptians was white. They told you Babylonians was white. They told you everybody that did anything of insignificance in history was white. And the people that told you that were never there. And they're white. So their intentionality of teaching you to undermine yourself has an effect on the way you think of your own self and the way you think of the people that are around you that look like you. There's an important part I want to get to in this portion, because as we went through Korach last week and we saw the very fact that we not only have to watch our adversaries, we have to watch our own. We got to watch our own.
Talk about it.
Because, you know, what you find funny is that we're in a huddle in our own community, bickering, fighting, not obeying God, not obeying Moshe, you know, having strife and tribulation. But at that same time, as all this is going on, Balak and Balaam is somewhere plotting against us.
Right, watching him plot.
So you have to think about all of this. The enemy is always trying to do a job against you. So you have to make sure that you understand that your brother is your brother. He is your most valuable resources, especially in a time of trouble. And what you're going to find is something funny, and it's a continuous theme throughout this Torah when it comes to Israel. We can't stand each other sometimes, but we don't like nobody messing with us. As soon as somebody come up against us, we, yo, so-and-so, Edomites, what? What's up?
Yeah.
Y'all was fighting yesterday. But now I want to go out and kill whoever come against y'all. Some families are like that.
That's a fact.
You and your cousin there fighting, arguing, bickering, fighting over whose thing, you know, Nana left the thing to me and all types of stuff like that. But as soon as somebody come against y'all, y'all stand together. We have to twerk that. We have to be consistently together. And not what is just convenient for you. You have to be consistently on the side of God and not when it's comfortable for you. We have to clearly understand that the Most High God has set this law before us for us to get along and not for us to be apart from one another. So when you see the animosity and the enmity that comes between brothers and sisters and everybody within this movement, we have to question, where are we with God before we start to attack somebody, because you always think it's somebody else's fault. Rarely do we take accountability for the things that we do concerning the separation that we practice in this nation. We don't. We always think it's their fault because they stepped on my shoe. They sat on my chair last week. I asked them for some bread and they ain't give me none. All types of reasons. But where are you in this process? Where are you in the separation of God's people? What have you done as a man or a woman to bring God's people closer? I know some of you, first thing comes to your mind, that's not my responsibility. This Torah is everybody's responsibility. There's nobody that hears it that can say, well, that's not my job, that's not for me to do. I think sometimes we thrive too much on believing that our popularity is our power and not the morality of God. We have to begin to understand that God don't care about all of the stuff that we care about. There's people that, as I speak, they're doing things to try to validate themselves. And they're trying to validate themselves in the eyes of other people, not knowing that the person that you're trying to impress is worse than you are. That's why you have to focus on God. That's why you have to make sure that God is your shield and your reward. That's why you have to make sure God is the most paramount thing in your life as a human being. Because people come and go, people change. And God tells you those things. The person that you thought was the greatest person in the world wound up being a piece of crap because he's a human being. And we have to clearly understand that only the Most High God is consistent. So let's start at the book of Numbers chapter 19, verse 1. And we will be going over, in this chapter, the law of the sprinkling and the red heifer and different things of that nature and how to get clean from the dead and certain things of that nature. Tom Sheep.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe and unto Aharon, saying, This is the statute of the Lord which Yahweh hath commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Yisrael, that they bring thee a red heifer, faultless, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came yoke.
So, I do research on this every year. Every year I find something different. To this day I haven't found, and it doesn't matter if I find it or not, it's what the Most High God commanded. Let me make that as a disclaimer. But there are things that the Most High God wants when it comes to getting this red heifer. It has to be a red heifer, meaning a female cow, right? There's no explanation on why, at least I haven't found any, on why it's a female as opposed to a male. Faultless, wherein there is no blemish. That means that it has nothing wrong with it, right? Doesn't have a limp, doesn't have a red eye, it doesn't have an issue. No type of blemish, it has no scars. Nothing that's ill or nothing that you can notice to say that, okay, something is wrong with this, whatever. The tail is too short. Maybe there's teeth missing, whatever. It has to be blemishless. And upon which never came a yoke. That means it was used for no servile purpose whatsoever. Right? It didn't plow anything, it didn't do anything of that nature. That's the stipulations for this heifer. Come sheep.
Verse 3. And ye shall give her unto Eleazar the priest, and she shall be brought forth without the camp, and she shall be slain before his face. And Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger, and sprinkle of her blood toward the front of the tent of meeting 7 times. And the heifer shall be burnt in his sight, her skin and her flesh, and her blood with her dung shall be burnt. And the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer.
So, he slays the heifer, sprinkles the blood, and then he continues to burn the whole entire thing. The whole thing. There's nothing said. He burns everything. As it comes is how it's going to be burnt. And then he adds these things to it. He adds cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet. So, as I know, as I taught this in the past, this is basically kind of how you make soap, detergent, different things of that nature. What I did research this year is the earliest soaps were made by the Mesopotamians. I thought it was the Indians, but it was actually in Babylon, in that area. The first people to make soap, what they did is they took fat and they took an alkaline or something of that nature. In this, you can obviously see that this is cedar wood, and they would make those things together. So those ashes, the burnt ashes from the animal and the wood would come together and make some type of detergent. In this case, you're making something a little bit more stronger. Research the hyssop. Hyssop is antimicrobial, antifungal, all of these purposes. It cleanses, it does all of this stuff. It was used by people from Rome to Greece to Egypt as a cure-all. So you take that hyssop, you add it to what the fire, the ashes of the red heifer and the cedar wood, and you have the scarlet. And for years I've taught it. I didn't know the reason for the scarlet, but I had to dig a little bit deeper for the reason for the scarlet. So part of what I'm going to say is inference and the educated guess, and part of what I'm going to say is basically the knowledge of what the herb is for scarlet. When you read it and research it, it's not just, they say scarlet, but it's actually a thread, right? Or a material that they're adding to the burnt mixture. So what I did was, just to make sense, most of the stuff that we got from Egypt, right? We came out of Egypt, we spoiled them all the material that we got from Egypt, right? So when I did the research on that, what they showed was Egypt had this thing called red ochre, right? Which is what they use for painting. This is the dye that they use for painting. But the pigment that they used for dyeing clothes was the same type of plant that they use for red henna. And I looked up the plant as Rubesque something. I forgot the exact name of it, but it's the same plant they use for henna. And if you look at the properties of what they use for henna, this plant, it has all types of medicinal purposes to it. But the purpose that you would see that would be inclined to what they're using it for, this mixture, is that it's an astringent. Now, you know what astringent is, like witch hazel. Right, you put on your face because the aim of it is to close your pores to keep from certain things invading your skin. Right? So we're going to go through what they actually do when they sprinkle this concoction on people to make them clean. But you have to look at all of the ingredients that are being included in making this concoction. Right? You got something that's similar to soap. And this thing wasn't a pretty thing. When I say soap, that you had a nice bar that is all. Nah, it wasn't. It was a goop, right? It was a goop. It was something they put together. It was a goop, and they was able to take it and sprinkle it on people, whatever it can be. But it did its job, right? It was a goop. And on top of it, the material, right? This is the inference part. More than likely, it was linen because it came from Egypt. Egypt. Big on linen because of the flax, right? Got linen. Could have been wool, I don't know. It doesn't say. But if it was linen in itself has microbial, antifungal properties, the linen plant itself. So to me, it makes sense to me. It's me. Do your own research. Don't rely on Chief Nath. But to me, it makes sense that if it was linen, they're putting inside the linen, and they can put that in part of the concoction because the linen plant itself, even as it is, it has a certain medicinal benefits to it, that when all of these things come together, it becomes a powerhouse antifungal, antimicrobial agent that they can put to help people prevent them from getting disease and to cure them of things if they are getting any type of disease. And this is the reason why. Tamshi.
Verse 7. Then the priest shall wash his clothes, and he shall bathe his flesh in water, and afterward he may come into the camp, and the priest shall be unclean until the even.
So that you understand, this process makes the priest unclean. He's making something unclean. He's making something to cleanse people, but the process itself makes him unclean. Tamshi.
And he that burneth her shall wash his clothes in water, and bathe his flesh in water, and shall be unclean until the even.
Tamshi.
And a man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and lay them up without the camp in a clean place. And it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for water of sprinkling. It is a purification from sin. And he that gathereth the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. And it shall be unto the children of Israel, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among them, for a statute forever.
Now, when it says purification from sin, it's not talking about something more moral or evil. It has more to do with the fact that there's something that's dysfunctional that may happen around you. So I don't want to get you the idea that if you do things that are wrong, that you can get some type of sprinkling like holy water, and all of a sudden it fixes your problems. This is not that type of thing. Because some people think that's what a lot of they get from, like, we're going to sprinkle some stuff on you. Yeah, 2 minutes, oh man. It doesn't work that way. You can't get dipped in this. This is not that type of thing. The sin has more to do with the dysfunction, to make sure that when certain events happen, that there is no plague, that nothing jumps out on the people, and that we can be cleansed from it. Tamshik.
Verse 11. He that toucheth the dead, even any man's dead body, shall be unclean 7 days. The same shall purify himself therewith on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, and he shall be clean. But if he purify not himself the 3rd and the 7th day, he shall not be clean.
Tamshik.
Whosoever toucheth the dead, even the body of any man that is dead, and purify not himself, he hath defiled the tabernacle of Yahweh, that soul shall be cut off from Yisrael. Because the water of sprinkling was not dashed against him, he shall be unclean.
I want it to be clear. That's why I had him read the whole thing before I even said anything. When it says purify, it's intentionally saying purify with the sprinkling, right? That concoction. You can't just go and say, well, I'm purified because I washed on the 3rd day and I washed on the 7th day. No, you have to wash with this. If this is not sprinkled upon you, then you are still unclean. And it talks about the dead body. So there's something that I read interesting that I haven't read in previous years. I didn't know that when bodies die, I've heard of that before. Like there's some things that may make bodies infectious still. But there's a lot of things that leave the body that if you touch the dead body, that may infect you. Mm-hmm. You may be totally healthy. Right? So the body, he said waste. That was one thing. If when you die, you know, the stuff that's already in you sometimes leaks out, and it has certain, you know, it may be E. coli, maybe this and maybe that. I did read about Ebola. Ebola is one thing that when people die of Ebola, the Ebola is still there. The Ebola still lives, even though it kills everything. So when you get Ebola, there's certain times you see people wanting to burn a body because that's not just about killing or doing something with the body or cremating the body. They want to kill the infection. So when you touch any type of dead body, there's certain things that set in. That's why we in our culture, we want to bury people quick. We don't sit there and have bodies dangling and stuff like that. And, you know, oh, we're going to wait for George and so-and-so to come up from down south before we bury the body. Man, they're gone already. Exactly. And I get it. I get the sentiment part. I get all of that part. But they're gone. Put that bad body in the ground. Because it's not about you. It's about the environment. Right? And today, my brother, we used to work in a funeral home dealing with that stuff all day. You got to remember, this is ancient times. We didn't have no refrigerators to store people and make sure. And even with the refrigerators, they still got issues. You still got to touch things with gloves and masks and stuff like that because there's certain things that get inside your body and there's certain things that seep into your pores. That's why that astringent is so important when they sprinkling it on you because they close up your pores from anything to invade. There's certain diseases that are detrimental to the touch. There's certain things that a person may die from that you may inhale it in. It's funny, we deal in this time of COVID, and in COVID, you know, everything is about wearing a mask because this disease is they say it's not airborne. It's airborne. It's an airborne disease. It travels. It travels through different particles, spit, stuff like that, whatever, but it travels. And you breathe. So anything that's in the air that somebody may spit out, you breathe back in, right? So as you may not know what somebody may die from, even if they died of old age, there's certain things that may set into the body that you don't want happening, right? So make sure we practice some things today where for the sake of process and ritual, some people will go through a process of not showing up a place for 8 days because they went to a gravesite or whatever the case may be. And then some people say, well, that's ridiculous because you don't have to sprinkle the blood, whatever, the blood of the sprinkling, the sprinkling water, whatever, so you can't do whatever. My thing is, a lot of things that we're trying to practice is trying to get us in the habit. We know that we don't have those things now. So the part of it is not doing it and not calling it tokenism, but what's your process? Because you are unclean. And yes, for the most part, we live in a place that's unclean. Why do we separate women when they are on their nida and their separation? It's because we're trying to get into the practice, right? Because when we step outside, we live in a concrete jungle. When we step outside, there's places that our houses are on that are grave sites. We go into the subway tunnels that are grave sites. Other day they talking about, there's a slave, this is an old slave plot grave site downtown Manhattan, whatever. You knew that all along. You knew that all. You just didn't make people aware of it, but you knew that all along. There's another grave place in a community that we had in Central Park. Seneca Village. And part of that is we lived there and part of it was grave sites. There are places now where they just massacred people and put whole towns and railroads on top of the places that they massacred. It's facts. This country don't care about clean, unclean, and separation of the dead and stuff like we care about that. So whatever we can do to practice, we're doing it for the sake of the Most High God putting us in a better space. I'm not trying to tell you that you are clean. We are not clean. I can be the first to tell you that in America, in New York, Brooklyn, we are not clean. We are making our best effort. When the sun goes down, before the sun goes down on Shabbat, you know that you were around certain places, sit in certain places, you wash up. Right. Certain things you do to make sure that you become clean. You separate your clothes. We are getting in the habit of coming before God. So I'm not going to separate and say one is better than the other and this makes sense and that don't. Do what you can do in order to feel in that mind state of being pure and right before God. Because in essence, it's not going to be a thing of us going back home and trying to figure everything out all over again. That's why we're here. That's why we're in the wilderness, to get it together now. To get the love together now. To get the togetherness together now. To get the worship and the adornment of the Most High God, knowing that He's the only one now. Some of the habits we got to shed now. So, just to know about those dead bodies, it's real. Even when it comes down to a bone. That's right. There's so much things that, I'm not saying everything has a disease, but sometimes we don't know. I don't know if y'all used to ever watch this movie House, right? Yeah. House was a great movie because this guy was hated, a hated doctor in this industry because he would always find a problem. That's right. It's funny, right? Yeah, he would always think outside the box, and people didn't like him for it. Anybody that worked for him, like you used to work for House, can't work here. Yeah. Because he didn't follow the procedures of the industry. Yeah, if something, he would actually go and try to find out the origins. Okay, I remember one time he was an episode, somebody had some type of disease, they kind of figured out what it was, and he had a detective's mind when it came to medicine, and they didn't like that. He goes somewhere, find out that there was like a water cooler issue, and there was some type of birds that were infected doing something with the water, and that's the reason why the person got this. So he will always get to the origin of every disease that happened. He's not one of those things where I'm going to send you home and, whatever, I'm just going to let you die. I'm going to give you these medicines to help you, whatever, and I can't do nothing for you. He would make sure that he found a solution. So when it came to the Most High God telling us, hey, a dead body, a bone, even a grave, right? The Most High God covers all bases because He's the creator of all things and everything. So we don't understand it because we're human, but God knows what He's talking about. Even if you think it's ridiculous, because that's human beings. Oh, that's ridiculous. I can't step on the grid. He's 6 feet under, whatever the case may be. You don't know what's there. There's all types of diseases that you don't know about that the CDC and the government knows about. There's all types of stuff that, this is an infection. There's a brother that we know, he had something before all this stuff happened. He had a disease and they didn't know what was going on with him. He survived it, but they don't know. Sometimes they just don't, these doctors don't know everything. But God knows everything. So when He tells you to clean yourself on the 3rd day and the 7th day, there's a reason for it, right? And you just think about this. When somebody's monitoring you for disease, right? They just don't look and say, well, let's just give them some 7 days and make sure that everything is okay. Or let's make sure to give him 48 hours and make sure. They have to know, listen, at a certain time, we're going to watch him. He's going to wash. We're going to make sure that he has no problems with him. And then if anything else comes out after that time, then he's okay. They finally figured it out with COVID. 14 days. Yeah, now it's down to 5, right? They say if anything happens, if he's infectious, you would, this is what a lady told me when I went to get tested. She said, no. It's like, if you pass your 10 days, if you're alive, and you don't have any problems, then you're good, right? You may have traces of it, but you can't infect anybody and nobody can infect you. You have it, right? But, she was cool with me, Jewish nurse, she was great, right? But she gave me the straight, like, if you survived everything, like you here still and everything is good, then you're good, but now they're putting it down to 10 for 5 days instead of 10 days. But at any rate, the Most High God has his process, and the Most High God knows the reason why he has the process that he has, right? Now, I venture to say to you, as we read last week, Korah, Moshe's first cousin, didn't understand that God knows the reason why he does what he does. Even if you do not, God knows what he's doing. God knows, it's not nepotism, God knows why Aaron needs to be the priest. God knows why Moshe is his prophet. When you read about Moshe and study Moshe, you clearly understand why Moshe is his prophet. Because nobody has the patience to deal with the children of Israel the way he did. That's a fact. To see them mess up, want to kill him, want to lambaste him, talk about him bad behind his back, talk about God bad behind his bad behind, not behind God's back, but talk about God bad in their tents, and still pray for them and pray for their existence and pray for their lives and pray that God spares them. How many Negroes you know like that? God actually said, listen, let me do away with these people and I'll make a nation out of you. Moshe said, nah. He said, blot me out your book. And then God says to him, you don't tell me who to blot out my book. I'll blot out who I want to blot out my book. The sacrifice, that humble spirit, don't go too far. But real, because that's who Moshe was. So I say that to say that God knows what he's doing. Every law that he made, whether you get to the point to understand the purpose of it or not, God don't put the reasons and purposes behind the things that he tell us to do. He just tell us to do it. And then as you see it work, you begin to understand. When it works in your life, you begin like, you get those aha moments. But you know what? When you have those aha moments, they resonate a little bit stronger, don't they? When you get all the reasons why, this is the reason why you shouldn't do this. Now, when you go through and you see it, and then you be like, aha, it makes sense now. It makes adultery, it makes sense why we don't commit adultery. Look at the atmosphere of what we live in right now. It makes sense that our daughters and our sons are not supposed to be whores and homemongers. Look at what we're dealing with right now. Look at the fact that we can't raise kids no more because this is the product of our children now. This is what they learn. This is the behaviors that they have. They can't concentrate on their violin and their trumpet. They can't concentrate on their math because they're 13 years old having sex. So the genius that was supposed to come out of them can't come because it's being subdued by other things. So that our greatness gets suppressed. Who we are and what we could become gets thrown out the window because we care more about doing wrong to our brother than we are helping our brother and our sister. So now when we can't grow as a people, it makes sense. It makes sense. Because remember, love and hatred are practices. They're not just emotions. They're practices. So you may think that me and you was cool, but you don't do right by me. You hate me. You may not use the words verbally and say, brother, I hate you, but the things you do show that you hate me. At the same time, those things to show that you love me as a brother and a sister, show you, the behaviors show that you love somebody. Come sheet.
Verse 14. This is the law. When a man dieth in a tent, everyone that cometh into the tent, and everything that is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel, which hath no covering closed bound upon it, is unclean. And whosoever in the open field toucheth one that is slain with a sword, or one that dieth of himself, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days.
Now, I've read, and I've also was taught that earthen vessels get destroyed because they're earthen, they have pores and stuff like that, whatever. The Most High doesn't give a reason why. I'm gonna let you know that this is my second disclaimer. He doesn't give a reason why on that. But what I did also read is that when people expire, there are gases that are let out of the body, right? And I'm not just talking about bowel gases. Just those gases are let out. Just gases are let out the body. I can't explain it. I'm not a scientist. They say that there's something happens, people expire, the body or where they're around becomes wet. And then there's just gases that just lift about the body, you know. That's what it is. I can't explain it. But for whatever it is, those things that are not covered now have to be broken. If they are earthen vessel, tossed out, and if they are earthen vessel, they have to be destroyed. Tumshi.
And for the unclean they shall take of the ashes of the burning of the purification from sin, and running water shall be put thereto in a vessel, and a clean person shall take the hyssop, and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it upon the tent, and upon all the vessels, and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that toucheth the bone, or the slain, or the dead, or the grave. And the clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day, and on the 7th day he shall purify him, and he shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at even. But the man that shall be unclean, and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from the midst of the assembly, because he hath defiled the sanctuary of Yahweh, and the water of sprinkling hath not been dashed against him, he is unclean.
Now, the cutoff is that you didn't go through the process. The cutoff may be deliberately something that you're doing because you're being lazy or you don't want to go through the process, or you may not be able to go through the process, so you actually have to get cut off because you're not clean yet, right? But at the end of it all, if this happened to you, you have to make an effort to become clean. Now, these laws, you got to remember, you got to picture that a lot of times we read Torah. Torah is an evolving word. The reason why I say that, because when we were given the laws in the wilderness to operate in the wilderness as a people in a community together, right? But God, in his infinite wisdom, clearly understand that one day we will be in Brooklyn, New York, disobeying his word, and as a consequence, we're in a foreign land trying to get back. The same laws still apply. Right? What we can do in this country and in this environment and in our exile or slavery, we have to do. What we can't do, we can't do. We can't control a process that God has not allowed us to do. That's God's word. That God pronounced that we will be in his lands, serving gods of wood and stone, being oppressed. He pronounced that. Right? So what we can't control, let's begin to control. We don't have priests. We don't have red heifers. Right? We don't have the wherewithal to create this in this time. We don't do sacrifices now. We only could do what we can do. But if there's anything that we are supposed to do before God, we have to practice it before God. Don't be like, oh, I ain't going out because I ain't feeling so-and-so, whatever the case may be. That's not your job. Your job is to assemble. Because that's what God told you to do. Oh, I eat where I want to eat. I just pray over my food. That's not what you're supposed to do. God told you what to eat, how to eat, and where to eat. Whatever the Most High God told you, nah, man, that's not what that law is talking about. God said, don't mingle your garments as of one and then together. That's just an example. But don't sit there and tell me that it's okay to have these two things together when it's not. Because we are making things up to make it convenient for ourselves. We are not Jewish people. Jewish people have their own way they interpret Torah. And if you look at and understand and research things that Jews do, you will probably be shocked and amazed by some of the things that they believe is valid that God said no to. Tell me that this is the percentage of pork that's in it that makes it clean or unclean. I'm trying to figure that and find that. I'm trying to. Maybe it's in the Apocrypha, but it's somewhere. Got to be somewhere in there that makes it valid. But it's like, and then we read that with the belief. There's somewhere that tells me that if I make this blue line, it's okay to do things that violate Shabbat. There's different rules. Somewhere I'm trying to read it where, it's okay to have sex with babies because they don't have a hymen yet. I know I'm hitting hard, but I'm telling you the things that they have in some of the rules that they have that they believe are Torah. Because it's how they interpret Torah. They just don't see certain things. This is not our lifestyle. We take Torah as is. And if you don't understand how as is, then you need to read. And I don't mean self-interpret, I mean read. There's people that like to self-interpret. But back to the portion, the Most High God requires us to get the sprinkling on the 3rd and the 7th day. If we do not do such, then we are deemed to be cut off because we haven't dashed ourselves with the sprinkling. We haven't gone through the process and the procedure. And brothers and sisters, there's nothing wrong with processes and there's nothing wrong with procedures. It's part of what we are, it's part of who we are, it's part of what we do, it's part of the law that the Most High God gave us, and those are the things that we have to get back to. Stop undermining everything that God puts forth to make it seem like it's nothing, and we don't have to do that. Eventually, we have to do that, so you have to study it. Because I'm going to be honest with you. I claim a tribe. My tribe is Zen. I fully believe that I'm from the tribe of Dan. My attributes, certain things, whatever the case may be. Shimshon, all that stuff. Good. Amen. I'm a Danite. But I'm a human being. And I might be wrong. What if I'm a Levite? God forbid. I've been doing everything that. I'm not a Levite. I'm saying that because what if you a priest? Think about it. My teacher, Moreh Hoshea, right? He was once Kohen Moreh Hoshea. He dropped the Kohen off his title because he looked at it. He understood that there's an accountability that comes with being a priest. You know what I mean? Whether or not you are ritualistic priest or whatever, priest, whatever, if you're going to have a certain title, there's a certain responsibility that comes with the title that you bear. And if you're going to live a certain lifestyle, there's certain things that, you have to commit yourself to being a priest. Whether you do it the right way or wrong way, your effort, the Most High is going to see your effort to say, if you're going to call yourself something, I'm going to hold you to that standard. So he dropped the Kohen. This is what he told me. That's the reason why he dropped the Kohen, because he knows his father, Kohen Levi, that's his father. And he knows his father did his job the best he can do his job. But he said, for me, he's like, I know I got to live up to that. I'm not going to sit there and play the institution like it's cheap. And that makes sense to me. But I'm saying, what if you are, things you think about sisters, what if you're out there playing and you are the daughter of a priest? What if you are a descendant of Aharon? Ben But Zadok, what if you are one of those? And your punishment is not being stoned with stones, but it's being burned. It's like you got to think about all of that stuff. You don't know. So sometimes you don't think about it. Maybe you have to start carrying yourself as such. Because you don't know. You don't know where you at. You know you Israel. But you don't know. You may be of that lineage right there. Got to think about it. A lot of us who survived came from certain places. Think about it. Think about it before you do your next bad thing. Think about before you eat that candy that's unclean and you want to start giving praise to God. Think about all of that stuff. Because God considers it. Time sheet.
Verse 21. And it shall be a perpetual statute unto them, and he that sprinkleth the water of sprinkling shall wash his clothes, and he that toucheth the water of sprinkling shall be unclean until even.
So I want you to understand what perpetual means. Perpetual means forever, right? Whether you're able to perform the full duties of it or not. This is what I like, the understanding that I get of a lot of things when it comes to us being in a certain circumstance. You know, during the time of the Maccabees, they had the stones for the altar. And, you know, the altar was defiled. You know, they used to serve foreign gods and had statues of foreign gods in the temple and stuff like that, whatever. So in their minds, they said, look, we don't know what to do. Just being human beings, we don't know what to do because God, there's no prophet right now that's tell us to yay or nay. So they said, we're going to take these stones and we're going to hide them. We're going to keep them, but we're going to put them away for when God tells us what to do with it. Right. So when we read these portions, we don't have these things. But we read it so when the time comes to pass, that God reveals the process and says, okay, it's time for us to do these things again. We know what to do because we've been reading it every year all of our lives. And we've been passing the information from generation to generation. But this is what preparation is about. Preparation is like, I'm going to ignore the part about the 10 pins and the curtains because we don't got nothing to do with that right now. What makes you think that you don't got to deal with that right now? And when you really study that part of architecture and building, it does a good service for you to build a place in this day and time to know how God wanted certain things back then. Amen. The smells, the fact that he wanted the showbread all the time on a plate and everything of that nature, and you know when you can approach and when you can't approach. That's why it makes sense when some brothers come and talk about, you know, we need a place that we can actually separate to God. You know, that we don't party in and we don't do anything in. That just belongs to, and when we come to service, this is what we do. This is that type of place. That mentality is very strong, but it's based off of things that God already wrote down. No, we don't have a holies of holies in the foreign land. I get that. But what we can separate to God, the same way you separate your clothes on Shabbat, like, you know, this is my clothes. I iron my clothes an hour before the sun went down. This is what I'm wearing tomorrow. This is what you do. You separate yourself. Last night I slept on the couch. It's hard. But I slept on the couch. You feel my pain, right, bro? And I don't have the AC in the living room. It was hard. It was hard. Yes, it's torture. So my pressure's up a little bit. I had to make sure it goes down before I stepped out the house. But I separate myself. There's certain things I don't do. I ain't been doing that. Because it's about God. Clothes is ready. You know what I'm saying? You got to get things ready when it comes to the Most High. Separation is a real thing. But the Most High God teaches us how to get in that mode based on the laws that we already have. Precursor, chapter 20 is very sad for me. I'm just let y'all know right now. But we're going to go through chapter 20. But I'm going to try to flesh out some things that we need to learn from our Father, things that the Most High God is trying to teach us in this portion as well, and trying to get an understanding of us, knowing who we are as a people as well. Tom Sheep.
There's one more verse in 21.
Oh, luckily.
And whatsoever the unclean person toucheth shall be unclean, and the soul that toucheth him shall be unclean until even. Chapter 20. And the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people abode in Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried there. And there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves together against Moshe and against Aharon. And the people strove with Moshe and spoke, saying, Would that we had perished when our brethren perished before Yahweh. And why have ye brought the assembly of Yahweh into this wilderness to die, we and our cattle?
Stop right there. One major event that happened is Miriam passed away. Please remember that Miriam is Moshe's big sister, older sister. And when it's just three of y'all, you depend on your family a lot, and you look up to your sister and your siblings a lot. And it's not, even they had they struggles, and Miriam said what she said about him and his Cushite Isha and stuff of that nature. That's still his sister. Still loved her. That was the one that made sure that he stayed alive when he was put into that water, that river. That was the one that hooked up Emma with Pharaoh's daughter. Remember Miriam. That's the one that we actually named the actual instrument. We call it a Taf Miriam because of when the Pharaoh's army died in the Red Sea and they broke out into song. Israel actually names that instrument after Miriam. She was a great woman. She was a great woman in the community, and she passes away. And in his time of grief and mourning, Israel, blind Israel, unfeeling Israel, incompassionate, selfish Israel, start complaining again. They even have the nerve to say, and I'm venturing what they're talking about is when their brothers died. I'm venturing to say that they're talking about the company of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Why we died? We should have died with them. Because remember, they actually blamed Moshe after they got killed. Saying, oh, y'all killed the people of God. Yeah. God killed the people of God. They're still the people of God, but they died because they were wicked. Yeah. The people of God die every day, B. Every day, B. You see it out here, B. People of God die every day, B, because they ain't living right. We still the people of God, but we die every day, B. Because we don't live right. We don't like to listen to what God has to tell us. And the people strove. You know what strove? Strove is not. I'm not even rendering a complaint. See, there's nothing wrong with having an issue. People have issues. Human beings have issues. You're striving with me. That means you're fighting with me. Right? Strove with Moshe and spoke, saying, would that we have perished when our brethren perished before Yahweh. Every time you asked for water, God gave you water. Every time you asked for food, God gave you food. There's nothing that you ever asked for, even when you didn't ask right, God still gave it to you. So you still have an issue in this time of grief, saying, would that we had perished when our brethren perished before Yahweh. I mean, this could have been everybody that died since they've been in the wilderness, them that have recently died. But you got nerve to fight somebody and said, I wish we would have died when everybody else died. Or would have been better if we have died. And I'm paraphrasing. Would have been better if we have died when everybody else died. Because you're trying to kill us now anyway. Because you know, Israelites, we got smart mouths. We know what to say to get under your brother and your sister's skin. And why have ye brought the assembly of Yahweh into the wilderness to die there, we and our cattle. And this is really pointing the finger at Moses, because he's saying, you brought us here to die. Us and our cattle. So you started a blame game with Moshe. But let's continue, because it gets worse.
And wherefore have ye made us to come up out of Egypt, to bring us unto this evil place? It is no place of seed, or of figs, or of vines, or of pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink.
Now, I just want I want to jog your memory again, right? We are in the wilderness. We came out of Egypt. We could have been in Canaan in 11 days. 11 days. We were scared. We were so scared that we didn't want to go. Moshe said, well, y'all get spies. Check the land out to see if the land is adequate, to see if the land is good, to see if I'm lying and God is lying and everybody else is lying. Go get spies and check it out for yourself. They went and saw that the land was good. At least they told the truth about that. The land is good. It's filled with all types of fruits and grapes this big and all types of stuff. But the people, we can't fight the people that's inside. They're giants in there and they're going to consume us. And, we look like grasshoppers in their eyes and all types of other stuff. I just want you to see the comparison of what they're saying now. We had an opportunity to have it all. Right? We had an opportunity to walk right into that land with God's power, with God on our side. And we say stuff like this. Wherefore have ye made us come out of Egypt to bring us unto this evil place? It is no place of seed or figs or of vines or pomegranates, neither is there any water, but that's what you asked for. You prolong your stay in the wilderness. You saw everything that was good about the land but didn't want to go because you were scared. But now you're complaining about being a wilderness. You know what? Sometimes, and I'm saying this to everybody within the sound of my voice, make up your mind.
Know what you want.
You got to know what you want. And stop complaining, because we complain too much. Don't you know there's nothing that you're going to do in your life that's not going to come with the need to have faith? You need faith. Because life is full of obstacles. Ain't nothing in life when you go to school. I don't know how many of you went to college, right? I went to college. First time I went to college. I went to City College. In orientation, they have you all in the room and you in the auditorium and they give you the speech. I want you to look to your left. I want you to look to your right. One of the people that are on that side are not going to be here. I was the one. Dropped out my first year. But I said to myself, if God gives me the opportunity to go back, I'm going to see myself through the whole process. I went back. Listen, I instant coffee was my best friend sometimes. I took classes in the summer. I worked and went to school. I did what I had to do to get out of there. But I had to have the faith to do it. The faith, because I know it's just not all me. If the path is not made smooth sometimes for the obstacles that come your way, you can't accomplish your goals. How many of you had things to do and the obstacle, as soon as you came with the issue or the thing that you had to do, the obstacle comes? Man, I owe money to this dude and I just lost my job, or whatever the case is. It happens that way. It's called life. Man. And I'm thinking about us as a people. We haven't changed. I'm reading us now. We have not changed. God gives you opportunities and you are scared because of the opportunity. If God gives us a means to survive in the wilderness, That means he wants us to live. God don't got to kill you. God is infinite, so he don't got to kill you now. He could have killed you when you left Egypt. He could have left you to die in Egypt. And sometimes the reasoning doesn't come to our head that the Most High is actually on our side. There are people who are scared of us, and we're going to read that in a few minutes. They are scared of us. We're sitting here worried about Moshe and water and not having figs. And it's people who say you want to scare the death of you. Balak, the son of Zippor, was scared. That's why he hired Balaam, because he was scared. Didn't know us from a can of paint, didn't shake our hand, didn't have a conversation. He just seen us running. Look at these guys, man. Like, look at these dudes. They walking around. When they get up, they pick up the whole temple that they got, and they just walk in, and they got this box in front of them. What's going on with these dudes? And they all structured or whatever. He only see the outside. Right. He don't see all of this garbage that's going on inside. But what they see, they're scared of. Even today, they are scared of you. You don't got to shoot unarmed babies down, but you're scared. Shooting people with Skittles in their hands and a hoodie, but because you're scared. You're not scared of the thugs. You never killing the thugs. The thugs is never getting shot by y'all. You know what I'm saying? The dudes, y'all ain't in the hood, and y'all, they never getting popped. Nah. Y'all are always popping the innocent. Yep. The little babies coming home from school and walking and minding their business is the ones you choose to kill. But it makes sense because you have to kill the people that they not there to defend themselves. They're not there. They don't have that with them. They're caught off guard. The dudes that's posted up that you know, Ray selling drugs. Ray sells drugs in your face. Take corn sells drugs in your face. And to get Ray off the street, you got to get somebody to snitch. You got to threaten his mama. TNT come with 5 dudes, and you got to corner him and get him when he off the block. Oh, he's at the club right now. Let's go get him. That's how you got to get Ray. But you kill an innocent out here. Because they're still scared. But you're always going to find it funny that you don't make any sense as a people fighting amongst each other with an enemy so fierce. Nobody likes you, Israel. And I'm beginning to believe God makes it that way. I think God makes it that way because either you're going to do what God wants you to do, or you're going to be the bane of everybody else's existence. They're not going to like you because you don't obey God. Why should they like you? Every problem that the world has today, you can blame on Israel. We were supposed to be the bringers of peace, salvation, understanding, and wisdom to all the earth. And we just can't get it together. Yeah, Russia and Ukraine, that's your fault. Roe v. Wade, pro-life, in this life, your fault. Sometimes we look at our slave masters and think our slave masters have understanding. Our slave masters brought us here to make money. Not to give us wisdom, civilization, or understanding, or righteousness. They brought us here to make money. So why are we following them? They are not moral guides. Anybody that looks at history throughout life understand that the Vikings that became Christians, that became Americans, are not moral guides. You are. So every time you go and follow them in their parades, in their customs, you fight for their causes, you look like a fool. Because they should be following you. So I just needed to let you understand that we're complaining about stuff. We already had the option to be good. We had the option to have all of the things that we're complaining about. We chose not to. Our choice. We just don't want to take accountability for the mistakes that we made. That's what it is. We want to blame somebody for everything. That's what it is. That's what we love doing. But In the essence, we're complaining about something that's totally and 100% our fault. Tamshi.
Verse 6. And Moshe and Aharon went from the presence of the assembly into the door of the tent of meeting, and fell upon their faces, and the glory of Yahweh appeared unto them. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, Take the rod and assemble the congregation, thou and Aharon thy brother, and speak ye into the rock before their eyes, that it give forth its water. And thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock, so thou shalt give the congregation and their cattle drink. And Moshe took the rod from before Yahweh, as he commanded him. And Moshe and Aharon gathered the assembly together before the rock. And he said unto them, Hear now, ye rebels, are we to bring you forth water out of this rock? And Moshe lifted up his hand, and smote the rock with his rod twice. And the water came forth abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their cattle.
I need to stop there, because I'm going to unpack a couple of things with this. You know, I was and Most High grants revelation when he chooses to grant it. You know, I was raised with the belief that the reason why Most High was upset with Moshe is because he didn't separate him in the sight of the people. When I'm reading this, and I had to read it again, I was like, why didn't I see this all the other times I've read it? The Most High gave Moshe and Aaron credit for the process before he even started the smiting of the rock and anything. They were going to get credit for the process. He says to them, and Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Take ye the rod, and assemble the congregation, thou and our brother, Aaron our brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes, that ye give forth its water. That it give forth its water, and thou shalt bring forth to them water. He said, you shall bring forth water to them out of the rock. God didn't even take credit for what he told him to do. He said, thou. Let's look at it. He said, and thou shalt give the congregation, saying again to you, saying thou means you, and their cattle drink. And remember, this is a private conversation that's going on between Moses, Aaron, and the Most High. They don't know, the people don't know what's going on. And God says, this is what you're going to do. You're going to talk to the rock, and you're going to ask the rock to give forth the water, and you will, you're going to do this. God actually seemingly puts himself out of the whole situation. He just gives instructions. Moshe goes and he smites the rock, and he says, shall we give thee drink, rebels? And after I read this, I had to read the punishment and what the Most High God actually told Moshe. Right? He didn't even say you disobeyed what I told you to do. But the way he frames it is part of the framework of the Israelite mentality that we always have to fight day in and day out. Let's hear what the Most High God said.
And Yahweh said unto Moshe and Aharon, Because ye believe not in me.
It didn't say anything about separation. He said, you didn't believe in me. You didn't believe in me. Not about separating my name. Because I didn't even ask you to put me in it. I said that you're going to do, this is the process that I want you to do. Tamshi.
Because ye believe not in me, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Yisrael, therefore ye shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them.
So, understand this. I mentioned it before with the process of the sprinkling, and people just decide not to do what God tells them to do. Mm-hmm. Moses is not in the position to not listen to God at any time. At any time. So when the Most High says to him, you did not believe in me. Those were not the instructions I gave you.
Right.
That's not the miracle I asked you to perform. You went and in an Israelite fashion, which is not like you, Moshe, did what you wanted to do. And just the funny thing is that it yielded the same result. Maybe the rock had water in it already. More than likely it did. But that's not what God asked you to do. God asked you to perform a work. And now, whether the people knew the instructions or not, God knows that if I let you get away with this, it's a wrap. Because it can happen again. Moshe, your time is up. You are not going to let this people into this assembly, into the land of promise. Because of this act. Because you did not what? Believe. And I think what we don't understand is sometimes when we lack faith, God charges us for our lack of faith. Yeah, I grew up, Moses didn't separate God in the sight of the people. God didn't ask to be included in it. He just said, no, this is what you're going to do. And he's telling just these two people, he's not telling everybody what's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? We know in hindsight, because it's written down. But they don't know what's going on. He's just said, listen, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take this. And I don't know the reason why Moshe struck the rock. A lot of us think it may have been, and we make emphasis to say that he may be grief-stricken. He may have just been tired. I'm going to say this to everybody within the sound of my voice. We have to watch the energy that we spit out, and we have to watch the companies we keep, because at the end of the day, a lot of the things, you may not even be an angry and vile person, but if you hang around angry and vile people, that spirit will rub off on you. You ever been around people that complain a lot, and all of a sudden you start complaining? You gotta find something, because that's the language that they speak, and in order to speak that language, you gotta start complaining when they complain. I don't like Naph, man, because he be up on the mix, be out and say, and then you gotta shoot, you gotta shoot something out of the air to be like, yeah. I see. Look, you don't see nothing, brother. You just trying to have a conversation, and you need to have inclusion and validation in the conversation that you're having. So all of a sudden, you become a complainer. Yeah, I know there's certain things. I be seeing certain things, whatever the case may be. Check your spirit. Check your spirit, man. My t-shirt company, my campaign is going to be Fix Your Crown, right? Because men and women, you got your crown. Your crown is just not something you just put on your head. It's your integrity, right? Fix your crown. That's not you. That's not what God wants you to be. That's not what God made you. So you have to understand, Moshe, I can't even complain. I'm just sorry that, because God is infinite and the history is infinite. So even as this is written in our linear finite minds, this happened 1,000, 2,000 years ago. When you read it, it happens. It's happening like right now. Like my ancestors right now, I don't know whether he was on the right side of the situation or he was one of those that was complaining. I don't know, but I just feel like that I was there, and I feel sorry for Moshe because he had to deal with so much crap, and it got the best of him. And you have to watch your spirit when it comes to dealing with people, because he's dealing with his own cousin coming up against him, and people being jealous of him, and people wanting to beef with him, and people wanting to fight him all the time. And then he has an outburst, and it cost him. Now, I don't know if it cost him his life, per se, because God didn't kill him, but it cost him the ability to be able to go into the land. Like he wanted to see it as well, and he couldn't even see it the way he wanted to see it, right? He was able to see it from the valley and whatever, but it's a difference when, you can look at Punta Cana from the internet and you there on the beach. It's a difference. You know what I mean? When you're eating the grapes from the place and stuff like that, it's a difference. So he was able to get a nice visualization before he passed away of what the land is and how great it is, and you see the borders and the coast and everything like that. He was able to have a visual, but he wasn't going to be able to have his feet on that soil and touch it and watch that. And I'm telling you from experience, I've let people in my life make me angry because they was angry. I let people in my life disturb my spirit because their spirit was disturbed. He has to deal with all types of people, and he's doing a good job fending them off, but sometimes it comes to the place that my sister just died. You know, my own cousin that I grew up with wanted to fight and, talking about, I'm thinking I'm like a Jack Lake preacher, and I had to say, confess to the people, and to the Most High, I haven't taken anything from anybody. I haven't taken a shoe latchet, a cow, I haven't taken a piece of cloth, I haven't taken it, and the people got. The people have enough to give. I haven't taken anything from anybody. I haven't asked anybody for anything. So their occasions against me are all false. And then more complaints. Complaints on top of complaints on top of complaints on top of complaints. And you start hearing this energy, and it gets the best of you. And you be like, in your mind, you say the people don't deserve a rock being spoken to and water just coming. They don't deserve a miracle right now. Yeah, if it were up to me. And this is part of the mentality, is like, because you don't believe. Like, Moshe, I'm still in charge, man. I still run this. You just can't do what you want to do. Because when you, my servants, start doing what they want to do, it gives occasion for everybody to think that they can do the same. You can't do that. And in one inkling, do I think that Moshe put himself in the stead of God or tried to compare himself to God? He had the power to, God gave him power to do certain things. God actually told him, this is the only man God ever told that to, you will be in my stead and your brother will be in your stead. That means that you will be, and this is a man, he said, you will be like me when you talk to Pharaoh. Pharaoh ain't going to have no direct line to me. I'm the boss. You don't talk to the boss. Yeah. You talk to the conciliary or whatever it is. That's who you talk to. You talk to Moshe, you talk to Huey, you talk to him, you talk to me. Right. Whatever you talk to me. That's what Frank Lucas said, right? You don't talk to nobody, talk to me no more. That's right. Pharaoh ain't going to talk to me. He going to talk to you. So that's what he did. Moses had that power. And God gave him that power again. Moses, this is what you're going to do. You're going to talk to the rock. You're going to do this. You're going to give the people water to drink. He didn't say nothing about me doing anything. He said, I'm not going to. So you're going to give people water to drink. Y'all go over there, do what I tell you to do. You're going to give people water to drink, and you'll give them the cattle something to drink. But do this process. Should we give you drink, ye rebels? No, Moses, you can't do that. And I say this to everybody, because a lot of people, we want to be leaders. We want to be special. We want to be validated. You have to think about the responsibility that comes with the job that you do. If you're not ready for it, then don't do it. Because the people don't mean no more fakers and people that are abusing them and conning them and putting them under pressure for no reason and asking for money. And let's stop all of that. Amen. What are you going to do for the people? Not what people are going to do for you. Because Moses was more than just an image. He was the real servant of God. God told him things he didn't tell any other man. He gave him power he didn't give anybody else. So with that power is a level of accountability and responsibility that you have to carry that's bigger than everybody around you. These guys can get mad and maybe they can get some mercy and stuff, like, because that's them. You actually saw God's glory. You can't make the level of mistakes that they can make, and you know better. So I'm sad because Moshe is sad. I'm sad because this is something that he wanted. Amen. And I'm sad because the Most High God had to be God. And God is always just. He is justice, so there is no, I'll give you a break. I wish That's for the common man. The common man gets the breaks. I know I heard silly things out of people's mouths. I remember one time somebody was talking about something because we were always trying to make excuses for our sin. And somebody said, well, David ate the showbread, right? David did a lot of things. David paid for a lot of things that he did. Do you know what it's like for a warrior, right? Death is nothing in his mind. God knows that. Like, it's not enough to kill this guy for committing adultery. He has to see the pain that he caused, right? So now you start to see your kids because David loved his kids. He couldn't tell them nothing. Couldn't even spank them. Like, you got one son rapes your daughter. You got to think about the craziness that you got to think about in your mind, and you're the king of Israel. You got a son raping his daughter, raping his own sister. And then his brother comes and kills him, and his brother wants to come and be the king and do all types of stuff and have a war against you, and all types of madness is going on. Like, his heart melted a million. David died 1,000,000 times before he actually died. Think about that. Think about if that happened to you. Could you? Your mind couldn't stomach. Your mind couldn't take it. So when you see him crying, and they had to toughen him up because it's enough to make a man melt, man. Oh, Absalom. It's not really Absalom. It's really, why did my son have to go through this? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to see my children and my babies? Because you think about your children, they may be grown men with beards and everything, but you think about when they first came out of the womb, and that was my baby, man. But this is how parents think, man. And they be having monsters for kids. Still coddling, oh, it's my baby. Nah, that boy needed to die. Long time. He needed his head, but the parent can't see it, man. And this is sad. There's a lot of people in Israel like that now. They can't see it because they love. And they know, if the laws were the laws, a lot of us, that law of stoning the kid that's a drunkard and this and the we don't practice that. Yeah, we don't put up our kids. We be like, I know he's a whoremonger, man, but give him some time. I know he smoke weed all the time, but give him some time, man. He gonna straighten things out. Let's close out. I'll probably take 5 extra minutes. Tum sheet.
Verse 13. These are the waters of Meribah, where the children of Israel strove with Yahweh, and he was sanctified in them. And Moshe sent messengers from Kadesh unto the king of Edom. Thus saith thy brother Yisrael, thou knowest all the travail that hath befallen us, how our fathers went down into Egypt, and we dwelt in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians dealt ill with us and our fathers. And when we cried unto Yahweh, he heard our voice, and sent an angel, and brought us forth out of Egypt. And behold, we are in Kadesh, a city in the uttermost of thy border. Let us pass, I pray thee, through thy land. We will not pass through field or through vineyard, neither will we drink of the waters of the wells. We will go along the king's highway. We will not turn aside to the right hand nor to the left until we have passed thy border. And Edom said unto him, Thou shalt not pass through me, lest I come out with thee, the sword against thee. And the children of Israel said unto him, We will go up by the highway, and if we drink thy water, I and my cattle, then I will give the price thereof. Let me alone pass through on my feet, there is no hurt. And he said, Thou shalt not pass. And Edom came out against him with much people, and with a strong hand. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his border, wherefore Israel have turned away from him.
So I want to say something. I know, a lot of Israelites believe that Edom is the white man, right? I get it. It's not the case. But you can see the comparison of cruelty, right? Think about the stuff we had to deal with in this country. There was no compassion. They giving an explanation. Listen, we just passing through. Right. That's all we just passing. Just let us pass through. We're not asking for nothing. And listen, if there's a creek there and we do stop, we'll pay you for anything. And there were occasions in this country that were the same. I will pay you for that plot of land. I'll pay you for this. I'll pay you. Right? No. We ain't do nothing with no Negroes. No niggas. When you look at this country, the cruelty that they practiced against us was for no reason at all, outside of their animosity and hatred and their fear. And that's it. Edom did that, and you may think in your mind, man, they carrying this beef kind of long right now. Like, it's been a couple of 100 years since Edom and Jacob been alive. You know what I mean? And they made up. So, but some people carry that animosity, kept on carrying it. So even to that time, they didn't give us no breaks. Came out with like y'all want to kill us for acts. We just want to pass through. We don't want no beef. We ain't trying to, and we come in, we laid out, and this is the only time they did this. We just laying out, listen, y'all are brothers. Y'all know what we've been through in the land of Egypt, we just passing through. And they come out, not only did they tell us no, like for nothing, like for passing, we can't even pass through. And it's a funny thing like that now. You notice our culture, you notice that a blood can't go into a Crip neighborhood, and the Crip can't go into a blood, can't even walk. If I wanted to see my aunt in the Crip neighborhood and I'm a blood, I gotta take off my colors, and even if I don't have colors, they still gonna ask you who you here to see, what's up with you, such and such and such, whatever. Like, going to see my aunt May, I'm just chilling, But you see the cruelty, and even if I could even say in New York, it don't matter who you going to see. It don't matter if the person, they will still stick you up. It don't matter. You know so and so? Yeah, I know. I know him too. Run that. Yeah. I don't get a pass. No, I don't get no passes out here. Pass that wallet. Yeah. Pass that, homie. This is our culture now. But you see the cruelty that the law was created for us to have a better understanding and for us to have a sense of peace towards one another. This is what we're trying to avoid. These animals called Edom, choosing because they're animals, they're beasts. No. Like they want to fight. We don't got no beef with you. I don't care. Let's fight. They just doing something so that we can just fight. That's it. I don't care. We want to fight. We're gonna fight you. That's it. Why? Because. I was watching this movie the other day. I'm watching All Day, All Night, and I'm trying to piece together the reason why he was betrayed and everything. I'm just because I got to go back and watch all of the things because it didn't spell itself out to me when I first watched it. But his father was in jail with him and was telling him, the guy in the movie, he's like, they don't need a reason to do anything. They'll just do it. This is the prison. They don't need a reason. And you have people that are like that in the world. Edom don't need a reason to fight you. Edom want to fight. Edom don't care about losing. Edom don't care about losing. They just want to fight. There's people that are like that. I had a fight with somebody and I was beating them and they were still trying to get up. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just telling you, it's my past. It's what it is. But, I dude did something that was disrespectful. We started whatever. Then I thought it was going to be over, but he's still he's falling out, but he's still got his hands up. And I respect it because I don't want to just go out like that, but you got to call it quits, bro. Right? You got to you lay down, man. Don't. Because I'm not here to murder nobody. But the next hit may be your last hit. You know what I mean? But don't. But Edom, but that comparison of cruelty is sometimes why we look at them and say, hey, they must be like, that's not the case. The God said that we will be in a land where the people that we know not. Can't be Edom because we know Edom. That's our brother. We don't know these people. Tumshi.
Verse 22. And they journeyed from Kadesh, and the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, came unto Mount Hor, and Yahweh spoke unto Moshe and Aharon in Mount Hor by the border of the land of Edom, saying, Aharon shall be gathered unto his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given unto the children of Israel, because ye rebelled against my word at the waters of Meribah. Take Aharon and Eleazar his son, bring them up unto Mount Hor, and strip Aharon of his garments, and put them upon Eleazar his son, and Aharon shall be gathered unto his people, and shall die there.
God is not cruel, but God is God. The show goes on, and I think part of what he tries to show people, Moshe dies because Moshe is a man. Aaron is a man. These men are not going to live forever. Somebody's there. That's why they have sons. Somebody's going to be there to take their place. So when you say strip him of his garments, it's really strip him of God's garments. Because God is the one that gave him those garments. God prescribed those things to be worn. So strip them. It's like, and it's not, how when a general gets dishonored and stuff like that, and they start taking off his stuff, like taking off the pins and stripes, all your stuff is gone because you getting discharged and stuff like that. So this is not the punishment. The thing is, he's going to die, and somebody's there to take his place. So as we're looking at it as, oh man, it's sad, he's getting like stripped off. No, the fact that the show is continuing, the fact that the other generation is starting to do the job that they need to do. When I was at Beit Shalom, I'm looking at Gabba Eliyahu's son, and I'm like, I was just here like 2 years ago, and this boy was like this high, and he's his father's height. Sometimes as I'm looking, I don't know the difference between his father's voice and his voice. Right. And he's up there doing the service. It's the kids that are doing the service. The dudes that were just there, they were just 9, 13 years, now they up there, and they doing it impeccably. And I said to them, I said, you know what, stay in the house of God. I said, I'm proud that y'all are here doing the service, because most of the people in my generation that were serving God don't serve God no more. And y'all are here regardless of what. You may not like the style of service that they do because it's with prayers, whatever, but they doing it. They still in God's house, praising God. And they need to be, and they're doing it proudly. They're not like, I'm ashamed of that. They doing it with pride and with honor and with respect, and they're there and they rocking through the whole prayers and stuff like that, and they correcting the person that's up there doing the portion, and no, that's the wrong word. The word is nishplaka, and they doing it. But that's what we need, and the show goes on. The show goes on. Men die. Men bug out. Men lose their mind. God's show don't stop. That's why D.C.B, we should never just be, this is the congregation. We need to learn how to be an institution. Every Israelite place needs to know how to be an institution. That means the place has to thrive whether you're in charge of it or not. Whether you're in it or not. Because you may decide that you're going to go out and serve JC and eat pork chops. Men do things. Men lose their mind. But should the place that you dedicated to God to be destroyed because of you, it shouldn't be enraptured around an individual. It's bigger than that. It's never a one-man show. Our God is king of the universe. Remember that. Universe. Time sheet.
Verse 27. And Moshe did as Jehovah commanded, and they went up unto Mount Hor in the sight of all the congregation. And Moshe stripped Aharon of his garments, and put them upon Eleazar his son. And Aharon died there in the top of the mount. And Moshe and Eleazar came down from the mount. And when all the congregation saw that Aharon was dead, they wept for Aharon 30 days, even all the house of Yisrael.
Yeah, we don't like him when they're alive, but when he dies, we all sad. Mm-hmm. That's us, man. That's us. People saw that 3 went up, only 2 came back. Like, wow. Time sheet.
Chapter 21.
Last chapter.
And the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who dwelt in the south, heard tell that Yisrael came by the way of Atarim, and he fought against Yisrael and took some of them captive. And Yisrael vowed unto Jehovah and said, If thou wilt indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And Jehovah hearkened to the voice of Israel, and delivered up the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities, and the name of the place was called CHOKMAH.
Some sheep.
And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom, and the soul of the people became impatient because of the way, and the people spoke against God and against Moshe. Wherefore have ye brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, and there is no water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. And Jehovah sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much of Yisrael died. And the people came to Moshe and said, We have sinned because we have spoken against Yahweh and against thee. Pray unto Yahweh that he take away the serpents from us. And Moshe prayed for the people. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, Make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he seeth it, shall live.
I just want to point this out. Moshe is not going into the land, and he's still doing his job. That's why he's the prophet that's chosen by God. Still doing his job. I'm be honest. I come from petty. I don't know if I could do that. I come from the land of petty. I'm like, y'all figure that out for yourselves, man. Get out of my face. Out of here. Yeah. People ask like, I would be fighting people like, you asking me, don't ask me nothing. Cause y'all. Some shit.
Verse 9. And Moshe made a serpent of brass, and set it upon the pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he looked into the serpent of brass, he lived. And the children of Israel journeyed and pitched in Oboth. And they journeyed from Oboth and pitched in Abarim, in the wilderness which is in front of Moab, toward the sun rising. From thence they journeyed and pitched in the valley of Zered. From thence they journeyed and pitched on the other side of Arnon, which is in the wilderness that cometh out of the border of the Amorites. For Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of Yahweh, Vaheb and Saphu and Suphah, and the valleys of Arnon, and the slope of the valleys that inclineth towards the seat of Ar, and leaneth upon the border of Moab. And from thence to Beer, that is the well whereof Yahweh said unto Moshe, Gather the people together, and I will give them water. Then Yisrael sang this song. Spring up, O well, sing ye unto it, the well which the princes did, which the nobles of the people delved, with the scepter and with their staves, and from the wilderness to Matana, and from Matana to Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley that is in the field of Moab, by the top of Pisgah, which looketh down upon the desert. The desert.
The dessert. I know it's in your mind right now.
See where I'm at, right?
Yeah. No, we're gonna get there. So we're gonna skip 21 to 30. We spank the Amorites, plain and simple.
Meek.
Yeah, we rocked them out. But because we asked the Most High God, we asked it in the right way, and God gave us victory. 31 to 35. Let's end up.
Thus Yisrael dwelt in the land of the Amorites, and Moshe sent to spy out Yazir, and they took the towns thereof, and drove out the Amorites that were there. And they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Adrei. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, Fear him not, for I have delivered him unto thy hand, and all his people, and his land. And thou shalt do to him as thou didst unto Sihon king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon. So they smote him and his sons, and all his people, until there was none left remaining, and they possessed his land. And the children of Israel journeyed and pitched in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Brothers and sisters, I hope you got something out of what was brought forth. Thanking the Most High God for all of your lives today. Thanking Him for even allowing us to be in another high and holy Shabbat day. And just being thankful of the blessings that He has bestowed upon us, whether we see them or not. Hallelujah.